going on, Wolfpack Nation? Thank you so much for tuning back in here for part 2 of our discussion here. As we're going to be breaking down again women's basketball heading into the NCAA tournament. Now, once again, to keep in mind the same disclaimer I'm going to give as I did in the first part, being that obviously we recorded this the week before. Is again, we wanted to do a preview for wrestling, and then we want to do one for women's basketball. So if you are seeing this episode, that means that once again we have made it to the Sweet 16 here. We've made it. And we're heading to Bridgeport, Connecticut here. So I just want to go ahead and get that disclaimer here. But again, if you haven't checked out part 1 yet, make sure to go check that out first. And also to make sure, again, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any new content. Give this video a like so more NC State fans will see the video. And also to give us a follow Tuffy Talk now on Twitter and Instagram. Jumping right back in, guys. So, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit more, kind of player by player here and kind of expectations heading, into really the meat of the NCAA tournament here. And one of the things I thought was really interesting is that I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, we had at least 3 or 4 players that averaged double-digit points. But this year, we actually only have 2. And, you could probably guess one, which is Lisa Kunane. But Diamond Johnson is actually the other one that has actually averaged double-digit points. Now, I'm not saying that, oh my gosh, what is going on with this team right now? I mean, obviously we only lost 3 games, but also too, I think that more speaks about the depth of this team, how deep this team is. I mean, we have basically, I think it's 8 players that average at least 5 points a game. So meaning that, again, I mean, you have basically 8 players that have been productive in pretty much every single game this year. So, so I guess, Megan, I'll hand off to you first. So, I mean, what are your kind of initial thoughts, in terms of, do you see any player here that you think can be a huge piece besides maybe Lisa Kunane, who would be kind of a huge piece or a player that we may rely on?
It's one I honestly have come back to because we talked about this in the first episode. We mentioned it, and I've thought this already, but I know you think guards because guards are a shooting game. But since we run the 4-out, 1-in concept, I really think Camille Hobby is going to need to be big for this. I don't. That's just me personally, because I totally could see a game where or 2 where teams are going to attack Elisa Kunane. They want to get her in foul trouble. So Camille Hobby has to be ready to. You have to be counting her like, my go-to number is 8 points, but you have to be able to count her for like 8 points and 4 or 5 rebounds, or maybe more than that when she comes into play. I mean, she's going to need to be a big piece, and she has to be prepared behind Lisa. I think a girl like Jada Boyd's going to have to be really big, be aggressive.
She was amazing in the ACC tournament. She was amazing.
Yeah, I feel like she's going to have to be, but beyond that, I think the rest of the players are going to obviously have to play a little more. Raina Perez, Kai Crutchfield, they're just going to have to do well. But those are a couple players that I think those in particular are going to have big games. If somebody like Madison Hayes had a big game, that'd be great. Isaiah James, they'll be great. But I just don't. I just see Camille Hobby as being like she's going to be a critical piece because people will intentionally attack Elisa. And what happens if Elisa gets injured? I mean, that's still not a question too. So that's why I think you've got a lot of guards, and those are pretty interchangeable. You don't have a lot of forwards that are going to be able, and centers that are going to be able to, on your roster. So that's why I have Camille Hobby being like not an X factor, but she's going to be a big part of us winning and keeping going. In my opinion, apart from the starters.
Yep. Greg, who would you say?
So my X factor is going to be Jakia Brown Turner.
That's my other personal thinking.
Yeah, if her biggest thing, and I've heard Wes talk about this, is she doesn't shoot enough. And she needs to be more aggressive.
Yes.
And the aggressive is not shooting threes, which she does really well. She shoots like almost 36%. So that's not an issue. It's driving to the bucket. Because then, she can potentially dish off, either back out or dish it off to Kunane for an easy bucket. She's one of those sneaky good. Now she's a 4, but she handles the ball really well. So if we can get her up, at her average or better, because she's averaging right under 10 points, but she's someone that can give you 12 to 14 easily if she asserts herself into that role. So that would be and those are just bonus points for me. If she can just get up and get a couple extra points, it just makes life easier for everyone else and takes pressure off everyone.
Yep. Michael?
I'm going to go with Jada Boyd. I know she came up clutch in a few games during the ACC tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And, if one of the starters is having an off night for whatever reason, if she can come in and provide that spark that she has before, I think that'll be really important.
Yep. Yeah, so I was hoping that one of you guys would take away, because I was basically between two players, and so I'll kind of make in the same amount of time, I'll make kind of my pitch for each. But between Kayla Jones and Kai Clutchfield, so Kai, the reason why I look at her is because she's a 45% 3-point shooter, and you knew going into the season that's the best part of her game is her 3-point shooting, and so especially with the women's basketball game the way it is. And especially with the tough matchups you're going to see, we need that 3-point to be hitting every single game. We need that 3-point ball to be hitting.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking to her saying, I need you to, as a, basically a 6-year senior, to own that part of your game, And then the other person I would say is Kayla Jones, because for me, watching her play, she plays with such passion, such fire, that I think that especially like playing at UConn, playing basically on the road, that you're going to have to basically bring your own juice. You're going to have to rely on yourself.
Right.
Not necessarily saying, there's going to be state fans there, no doubt about it. But I'm just saying at the end of the day, if you're not playing in Reynolds Coliseum, you got to bring your own juice. And I'm looking at her in a big way because she's over 50% shooter from the field, and she shoots over 40% from 3. So she shoots the ball really well. So again, so that's really kind of my 2 points for her as well. But again, can't really go wrong here. But the one player which we didn't talk about, which I wanted to bring up, and I know I talked about before the episode as well, is Diamond Johnson. And she's been, obviously, she's been a firecracker this year for sure. And I think that arguably she could be one of the biggest steals from a transfer portal. In terms of almost any sport, when do you get a player that talented that you didn't even recruit her out of high school? You didn't even get her out of high school. It's crazy that we got her out of the transfer portal, honestly. And the fact that, we can have her for a couple more years, honestly. She's going to be more likely leading the show next year. So, but, obviously in the AC tournaments and the last few games, she's struggled, not necessarily been terrible by any means, but she just hasn't necessarily been, that spark, that 15, 20 point, scorer, which, there hasn't been a lot of players. So, heading into NCAA tournament, that Raina Perez, she needs that backup with Diamond Johnson. So Michael, let me ask you first, since I've kind of gone making Greg Michael, I will go backwards, Michael. So, do you see any reason to kind of worry at all with Diamond Johnson? Or, what, and if you're not worried, what kind of gives you that confidence that you'll see that spark?
No, I'm not worried. You mean for the tournament or for going forward for the future?
For the tournament. Yeah. Tournament. Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think so. I think, like you said, I think these Westmore will have everybody prepared, and they'll bring their best every night.
Yep.
She has had off nights, but no, not overly worried about her.
No. Well, because one other stat I want to point out too before I hand it to you, Greg, is she actually leads the team in turnovers. But again, I know a lot of that is, obviously youth as well. Obviously she's playing with a bunch of seniors that, are, a little bit more disciplined in terms of take care of the ball. So, not necessarily holding that against her necessarily, but that's just kind of the one thing I wanted to throw in there as well. But yeah. So Greg.
Yeah. For me, at times she presses a little too much. She tries to make the perfect play instead of the right play. And again, I think that goes to your point. She's young and, she wants to, make the play. And,
right.
But I'm looking at her stats here over the last couple of games. She had 6 points, 4 points, 7 points, 7 points, 11 points. 11 points is her average, but it's not been at a very good field goal percentage. So she's putting up a lot of shots to get to her numbers. And so again, I think that goes back to kind of the pressing issue, just trying to make more more happen than she necessarily needs to make. So if she finds the right play, she's going to be fine. I think it's, again, when she tries to do too much instead of play within the game. But other than that, I mean, there's a reason she was the sixth person off, I hate to say six man because it's a women's game, but six man in the ACC this year. So she's going to be fine. And Wes has said, hey, if you're not producing and you're not playing right and you're turning the ball over and you're doing, there's a spot on the bench for you. So when you're in a one and done situation, he's not going to play. He's not going to like try to let him figure it out. He's going to make the right move. So I'm not worried about it.
Macon?
I mean, I don't really need to say much more what this guy said. I just think she could be, I think in particular, then when we have like she's the kind of player that if we're in a lull in like middle of a game, just put her in. And then let's get the team going again.
See what she can do.
I mean, I think it's an energy. She brings the energy to the court, put her in, get some energy back going. Let's, get some things flowing again. So,
yeah, that's a good point.
Yep.
She is a spark plug.
She is. Well, again, I mean, because there's no doubt, man, she could be, when all is said and done, one of the most talented players that's ever, I mean, she could be, worn the state uniform. I mean, the talent there is just undeniable. It's like just watching her
She's
play.
got the potential.
She's so fast. She's so, like, some of the shots he makes is like ridiculous. I mean, seriously. So, I mean, I know, because I'll hand it to you, Macon. I know that I think all of us were high on Diamond Johnson heading into this season, but that was the one player that you when we did the preview was like,
I mean,
she is gonna be, the best thing.
I'm just glad. You know what? I'm just glad that not that I was right, but that it was true, because
that she backed it up.
She has been what we hoped she would be, and I mean, like you said, you just don't find 5-star freshman point guards that like I made a call that like Allen Iverson. She's the only woman to ever be invited to Allen Iverson's like kind of like not an All-American kind of thing, but basically like an All-American event, first girl ever, because she's that freaking good. So she's a great player. Really glad she's at state. I'm just glad it happened to be as successful. And she's got way more room to get better. Like,
for sure.
She's just like, it's almost like she's just so frantic to just to do everything great. And it's like, just let the game come to you. Just chill out a little bit, and you've got 4-star, 5-star players all around you. You're good. Just chill out, let the game come to you, and you'll be fine. So
I think we should nickname her, like, I know her name is Diamond, but she should be like the Fresh Princess of Raleigh or something like that. Because she was born and raised in Philly.
So, ooh, that's a good. I like that.
I'm just saying,
it's not bad. It's not bad. I like it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, for me, no worries whatsoever. I think that that she's one of those players that I don't think we'll ever have to necessarily rely on her. Like, I feel like that you got to rely more on your senior players, but that, just like Macon was saying, like, she's just that kind of that spark that hey, if she's clicking, great, but if she's not, it's like, we've done it before where we've been able to take care of business, necessarily without her, clicking on all cylinders. But I mean, she could do it all. So that's another thing as well that I love. But I want to talk about one other thing as well that really stood out to me, and that was in the AC tournament. I think it was in the quarterfinals, but I think actually in the semis as well. When we faced who we faced in semifinals? I'm sorry, I'm blanking. We faced Georgia Tech.
It was Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech. Yeah, Virginia Tech. But I think it was the game before against Florida State.
State.
So where we blew them out, and they basically and Westmore basically cleared the benches, and so you basically put Isaiah James, you put Madison Hayes, Genesis Bryant, Sophie Hart
was in there,
and I literally watched that going, man. Like, that's a good team. Like, like literally they had all their bench players out there, and I was like, man, like that team could compete in women's basketball in today, seriously. And because like one player that I loved heading into the season was Madison Hayes. And I think watching her, it really stood out to me because she plays hard. Like, she is like literally a bulldog out there. Like, she goes after those rebounds. She plays defense hard. So that's why one thing I want to point out as well is saying that, Lord willing, if it ever came down to it, if we had to, like, if Westmore like literally was like, okay, like, like let's say, Raina's struggling, Kayla's struggling. All right, let's look at Isaiah James or Genesis Bryant or like Madison Hayes. Like, I wouldn't necessarily panic by necessarily stretch of the measure. I mean, because I feel like that all those players offer enough that that I'd feel comfortable they could put in some efficient minutes. Now, again, obviously, I hope that we don't ever have to be in that situation. But what I'm basically pointing out is that, again, just it's incredible the depth that we have, and that we have so many players that if the situation calls upon it, I wouldn't panic, and I think that's huge, for this team. Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need, offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out.
Something to think about along those lines too.
Go for it.
I've watched enough games this year where if he puts in an Isaiah James and she's out there hitting 3-3-pointers, he's not going to take her right out.
No.
Like, he's going to let her ride. I mean, that goes for any of his players. When we made that comeback against Louisville, it was Diamond that was running the show. Raina was on the bench.
Right.
So just because Raina's your floor general, that doesn't mean it's her team the whole time. So that's the one thing I love about Wes. He's not afraid to just go with the hot hand, and he's not going to sit him down because they've been running for 5 minutes. It's like, I'm going to run you till you can't run no more, or you turn it over or do something that you shouldn't be on the floor for. So to that point, he'll run with whoever he's got. So he's a gambler. So
absolutely. So definitely, again, it's going to be exciting. There's no doubt about it. I think that, again, this team makeup is unbelievable. I think that, again, I mean, it just speaks to the volumes that we've won now, 3 straight conference
ACC
championships.
Yep.
And I love
a regular season this year.
I love, and now a 4th one as well. But I loved Wes Moore's comment on as well on Packer and Durham, where he basically said, like, when I accepted the job, I didn't even know if we were going to even win one, and here we are, winning 3 in a row, and a regular season championship. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But, so, one other thing I want to point out as well, which is something I think that speaks a lot to Wes Moore, is how deadly we've been in the third quarter this year. I mean, I remember. I think it was.
It's almost automatic. Sorry, it's just automatic.
It's almost like if we have the lead at halftime, you got to feel pretty good. We're more likely going to win this game. Got to.
One of the games you and Lay and you, Michael, were picking, like, if you were betting men, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, this line that we see here, like, I don't feel worried. I feel pretty good knowing that we'll just probably, add an extra 8 points at third quarter."
Yeah,
third quarter.
You can just count on the third quarter. It's crazy.
And it's like you can guarantee 3 things in life: death, taxes, and NC State in the third quarter.
Right.
Yeah. That's right. And just to kind of lay it out as well. So just in conference games. So again, I'm saying ACC games. So not necessarily like adding in like, any other maybe scrub teams or whatever it is. We literally have a plus 141 scoring margin in the third quarter. So State versus Opponents plus 141. That's unbelievable.
There's probably teams that haven't even scored 141 points in their third
quarters, right?
Yeah, in the third quarter total.
And we have a margin of it. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. So so again, that just speaks a lot to, I think, not only how good Wes Moore is in terms of making halftime changes, but I would say as well to the leadership of the players as well, because there's been games where the players maybe necessarily haven't played their best first half, and they'll be like, listen, we're turning this thing around from the moment the ball hits the court in third quarter. So that's kind of my other really thought about it as well. But
and the other thing to think about, speaking of those third quarters too, is like we kind of, in some of those games, I mean, I could probably talk about a stretch of like 5 or 6 where we needed those third quarters just to get back in the games because we didn't play as sharp as we should have in the first half.
Right.
But thankfully, like in the ACC tournament, that wasn't an issue. Like we turned it on from the get go, and I don't think we really trailed at all in any of the games. I don't think we trailed at all. Now that I'm thinking about it,
nope, I don't think so.
And it was pretty decisive.
Yeah, it was pretty decisive.
So that's a good thing to be in. Hopefully, we've corrected that problem. Because like I said, there was about 4 or 5 games in the middle of the season where we just thankfully we were able to win 4 of them, but that Notre Dame one we just couldn't get back.
Yep. Now one thing I wanted to kind of, now that we've basically gone through, kind of NC State's road, now that we've gone through obviously each player individually, kind of expectations for them, I wanted to kind of look at the ACC overall. So, I think there's no doubt, again, we have a good amount of teams, ACC teams in the tournament this year between Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, UNC, Miami, and that's just at the bottom of the bracket, but then like Louisville, us, obviously, again, there's just so many teams this year in the ACC that I honestly think that, you could feel pretty confident that you could at least see maybe, at least 5, potentially being in the Sweet 16. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked by any means, stretching the measure, if Notre Dame will probably make some noise, and get to the Sweet 16 there. Go for it.
I've got 5 ACC teams in my Sweet 16: North Carolina, Louisville, Virginia Tech.
You got UNC
NC State,
in there.
Notre Dame. Yeah.
I don't
have UNC going to the Sweet 16.
I got them knocked out.
F. Austin.
I got them knocked out. I don't trust, again, I don't know what it is with her, Bridgehart, Coach Bridgehart. They just cannot win games in the postseason. They just can't. Her record's terrible.
She hasn't won an ACC. She hasn't won an ACC tournament game yet.
Yeah. So I don't know, and against a sneaky Stephen F. Austin team, it's like,
sneaky.
I don't know.
And let's not forget their out of conference schedule was weak sauce. Like I don't understand how they ended up right behind us in the net. It must be their ACC games that brought them up, because
probably
you look at their out of conference games. It was pitiful.
Yeah.
And I will say that's the one thing that Wes Moore did really well is he scheduled
brutal
up for our non-conference games.
It was brutal,
for sure,
just to make them ready for this part of the season. So
yeah,
like Macon was saying, we're not going to be faced by anything. We've faced, I didn't do the numbers, but I would be willing to bet we've faced the most tournament teams. I would be fairly confident in saying that.
Yeah.
Considering we could play one in every single round that we've already played,
right.
It's probably close to it. Who do you guys have? Who's your Final Four?
Final Four. I haven't even done my bracket, really, to be honest, with women's.
I did.
So for me, I have us winning it all. No shocker there.
Yeah.
I have actually, I have Baylor upsetting,
Baylor,
Louisville, to get to the finals. Yeah. And then on the South Carolina, I have South Carolina. No shocker there. And then I actually went on a limb here and actually, I actually put in Texas as well instead of Stanford. I like Texas a lot.
It's possible, especially on neutral courts.
Yeah. Now Stanford, I like Stanford a lot, and obviously I think that all of us State fans, let's put it this way, for those State fans who maybe don't know, Russell Wilson,
Texas.
former Pac Pro, his sister plays on Stanford.
Yeah.
So he's at a lot of Stanford games. So I think it would be very interesting because we would face him in the Final Four. That'd be interesting for him to be there. Now, I know he's going to support Stanford, and I would, and everybody else would. If your own sister's playing on the team, you're not going to support the other team.
Yeah.
So
no, I support the other team.
But
I don't like my sister.
Yeah, but that would be interesting.
Depends on how much you love your sister.
Yeah, that's right. True too. But if your sister's competing to win a college women's basketball national championship,
you would never live that down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like you never live that down. Kicked out of the family.
You're not getting invited to Thanksgiving dinner.
No way.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at it, guys. I just think it's going to be all 1 seeds except for like a Baylor as a 2 seed.
Yeah,
that's what I'm kind of thinking.
I can't root for Texas.
Although, I just do not. I've seen Louisville choke way too much to say they're going to make it to the Final Four. I just don't see that happening. I could see them losing to Nebraska. I mean, I have no idea.
I honestly can too. Nebraska's sneaky good. Like that Big Ten is just as good as the ACC.
And if not them, Tennessee. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've got Tennessee.
Well, my only thing about Tennessee is, see, I didn't do Tennessee because they got that 4 seed based on earlier in the season, and they were really good player tore their ACL, and so they kind of started to trend the opposite way. Not to say they're still not a good team, but that that injury has really hurt them.
Definitely hurt some.
Yeah. And I just, again, it's kind of, for me, it's kind of, so it's an interesting story because obviously Kelly Harper, their head coach, used to be the head coach before Westmore at NC State. And so for me, it's kind of an annoyance almost of a sort because they've like Kelly Harper's turned Tennessee into at least a decent women's basketball program, no doubt about it. So it's like so it just stands out to me that if she didn't have the ridiculous amount of money, the ridiculous amount of recruiting support that she had, I just don't think that she'd get done. Because again, she had an opportunity to get it done in NC State, but and she didn't. I mean, she was basically 500 at best, and so it's a kind of almost a frustration point looking at Tennessee, going, God, I don't like it, but so that's kind of my point.
My big thing that I want to see State do first is obviously I want us to play Connecticut. Obviously at Bridgeport. I want to stop the streak of their consecutive Final Fours, kind of like what the men did in 74 against UCLA. I think that would be really awesome. I want to be that giant slayer, even though we are technically the higher seed, but I still think it's almost like we're an underdog in that environment.
I think we will be like an underdog. I think I can see UConn being favored by like 3 or 4 points going into that game.
I agree with you, Michael. I agree. So I want us to go in there and just end that nonsense, and then I think that would catapult us to a national championship.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because that we also get the monkey off of Wes's back, getting past the Sweet 16.
Yep.
Again, so the thing you guys were saying though is it's standard for most of us is Final Four. Everything else is disappointment. Yeah. Again, to me, I agree. To me, I still kind of think if they get an Elite Eight, I'll be proud of them. But
to
me, I will be slightly disappointed if we don't get to the Final Four.
Yeah, no, I'll be disappointed if you don't make it to the Final Four for sure.
I'll be disappointed if we win a national championship personally, but I mean, it's just part of
it. That's why
I want to put one of these up for women. I want to put one of these up for women.
There you go.
Yeah, no doubt.
Football helmet? No, I'm kidding.
The banner.
I'm confused.
Which, by the way, how many of those do you have?
Of what?
The football helmets, man. You got a lot.
Oh, I got a lot. Yeah, I put the bat up for baseball season.
Nice.
Yeah, I have all of them.
Sorry, I've seen them. I know everybody has seen them. Someday we just need you to walk through all of them for everybody.
I will do a walk tour of my fan cave. I can't call it a man cave. I let my wife down here.
You let her down there? Good for you.
How nice of me.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, but I'll tell you though, because again, one thing I got to remind all the viewers as well is, with my wife being a South Carolina fan, is I don't know, man. That would be a tough situation for me. Not necessarily like
separate ends of the house.
Right.
You got to pull for your school, and she's got to pull for her school, man. That's
right. I know, but I don't want her to cheer for her school. I want her to cheer for NC State.
Yeah. I mean, hey. So let me tell you a story real quick. I tried. So Virginia Tech men's basketball just played Duke in the ACC title game. My wife's a Hokie. Yep. Everybody's known that who watched this Tuffy talk. I said, sweetheart, this is a historic game. They've never played for an ACC title, let alone win one. And they're going to play Duke, and you need to watch that game. She slept through the whole game. She didn't watch any of it.
Oh, my God.
I was like, come on. But
Lindsay. Oh, come on. That's awesome. Funny.
Priorities.
Awesome. Well, hey,
sleep is a big priority.
Yeah, it is priority. No kidding. Well, Wolfpack Nation, thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed this preview. Really hope you all enjoyed this conversation. Maybe, learn some things, or maybe, had some interesting thoughts go through your head that you want to share with us. And make sure if you have any thoughts, make sure to direct message us. We'd love to hear them. But again, once again, Wolfpack Nation, make sure once again, if you don't mind, hit that subscribe button so that way you don't miss out on any new NC State content, but also too, it actually helps us a lot in terms of supporting the channel. Give this video a like once again, so that way this video can get in front of more NC State fans per the YouTube algorithm, which is way above my head for sure. And then also to give us a follow at Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter and Instagram. But again, hopefully in a couple of weeks here, we're going to make another one of these episodes celebrating the ginormous national championship for this women's basketball team, which I don't think is a stretch. It is not a stretch whatsoever. So anyway, Wolfpack Nation,
If we do, I'm
always,
shooting confetti.
you're shooting confetti. I hear you.
Oh, yeah.
Confetti all around. All right, Wolfpack Nation, as always, go Pack, y'all.